A new MIT study reveals the powerful consequences of artificial intelligence on actual intelligence. And guess what? Simply put, the use of artificial intelligence undermines your child's actual intelligence. In short, and this should be surprising to no one, when children don't think for themselves, they don't learn to think for themselves. I'll get to the disturbing details of the study in a moment, but let me first explain why these outcomes were obvious and inevitable. In a nutshell, the brain functions like a muscle insofar that it becomes stronger when it is used and that it atrophies when it is not used. I could list 1,000 additional factors that affect thinking, but that simple premise really is enough for this discussion. And when I say that the brain functions like a muscle, most people think that I'm speaking overly metaphorically, but I'm not. While the brain, of course, isn't actual muscle tissue, its functioning is remarkably similar. Much in the way that exercising muscles builds more muscles, exercising the brain literally builds the brain. Every time we engage in a thinking act, the brain builds more wiring, such as synapses through synaptogenesis, for that particular thinking act. On the flip side, the brain not only allows existing pathways to diminish when they're not used, it actually overwrites existing pathways with new ones. Now to the MIT study, titled Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt When Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing. It's by a team of researchers led by Dr. Natalia Kuzmina. The scientists broke a group of students down into 3 essay writing groups: an AI-assisted writing group that used multiple LLMs, not just ChatGPT, a search engine group, which we will not talk about in this particular conversation, and a brain-only group. The students then engaged in 3 writing sessions while the researchers monitored their brain activity using EEGs. Each student was also interviewed after each session, and all of their writing was assessed by humans as well as by AI. So what happens when one group is required to use their brain more than the other groups? Would it shock you to know that the group that needed to do their own thinking actually thought more? I hope not. Not any more than it shouldn't be surprising that a group of kids who practiced hitting a ball did better at hitting a ball than a group of kids who watched a robot hit a ball for them. Okay, that's admittedly not a perfectly fair analogy to the AI usage in this case, but it does illustrate the point. And the point is that the brain-only group performed better and scored higher on their essays. But that's not the most important outcome for us. What's more important is that the brain-only group exhibited the strongest, widest-ranging networks of brain activity, while the group assisted with AI elicited the weakest overall coupling of connections in the brain. In other words, the brain-only group thought a lot. The AI-assisted group did not. But it gets worse. The researchers brought those 2 groups back for a 4th session and switched their roles. They gave the AI group a brain-only writing task and the brain-only group an AI-assisted writing task. And here's what's so important. The brain-only group still performed better even using AI assistance, and the AI group still performed worse even when given the opportunity to think for themselves. Or should I say, they performed worse because they now had to think for themselves. See, over the first 3 brain-only writing assignments, the brain-only students built their brains for the task, and they built mental frameworks and habits to rely on when engaged in those thinking tasks. Thus, that they then so-called gained an AI assistant did not suddenly degrade all of the wiring that their brains built. But the AI group, when suddenly given the opportunity for a brain-only task, not only had built no wiring for accomplishing that task on their own, it also, and this is the most critical part, built wiring and mental frameworks for using AI assistance. What that means in a nutshell, and these are my words, not those of the study, is that the brain-only group got smarter and the AI assisted group not only failed to become smarter, the AI dumbed them down. They became habituated to relying on AI assistance instead of thinking for themselves. Thus, when given the opportunity to think for themselves, they were incapable of doing so as well as the brain only participants did. All of that should be concerning enough, but there's more. In addition to the direct cognitive effects, the researchers also found that the brain only participants demonstrated higher memory recall and greater engagement of thinking related brain areas compared to the AI group. Meanwhile, compared to the brain only group, the AI assisted participants reported lower ownership of their essays, which is an educator's way of saying that they didn't care as much about their essays and did not feel as though their essays were as much their own. Thus, to sum it all up, AI assisted writing made the kids perform poorly, it degraded their cognitive development, and it made them less invested in their own thinking and writing. So, what do we do? Well, in light of this study, one school of so called thought could be that since everyone is going to rely on AI in the future anyway, kids who do so will be no worse off than their peers. And using AI might free up time for them to do things that are more valuable than writing essays, which, again, they won't really ever need to write on their own because there will always be AI assistance. Those who subscribe to that position probably should stop following me here at Actual Intelligence right now, as we will be rather inclined to disagree. The other school of thought is that thinking skills, such as those developed through writing, which research repeatedly shows is the best way to teach critical thinking, are far more important than any and all expediencies achieved through AI assistance. Let me rephrase that. If you want your kids to build their brains rather than have them degenerate into relatively useless gelatin that can only write through AI prompts and assistants, or perhaps order a burrito online, then keep their brains as far from AI as possible. Obviously, there's not much that you can do with your college-age kids other than share this information with them and hope they make the right decisions. But for kids still under your roof, there are a few things you can do. One, share this information with them. Most kids don't want to get dumbed down by AI. They do value their ability to think. So take time to explain and then reinforce the consequences of AI. In fact, start thinking of AI as something about which you need to begin messaging no differently than alcohol, drugs, and sex. 2, ask them how they use AI. Understand their current relationship with AI, and please keep in mind that the MIT study does not speak to other ways that students might interact with AI beyond this one context. 3, check their work. There are plenty of sites out there that scan essays to see if they were written by AI. Those sites are not perfectly reliable, but they might offer useful information about what your kids are up to. 4, if you really want to get serious, have your kids download all their source materials for writing before they start doing so. Then shut off their internet while they write. Take away their temptation to use AI assistance. Make them use their own brains. In conclusion, the implications of AI-based so-called thinking work are becoming clear. But for anyone who has thought about it or who values thinking, they're also not surprising. Every time we use AI to assist our thinking, it not only prevents us from thinking, it degrades our capacity to think in the future. Worse, much, much worse, is that those of you watching or listening to this right now built your brains before AI existed, which means that even if you gravitate to using AI now, which I hope you don't do much, you've got a lot of brain muscle built up to abate AI's negative consequences. AI will still degrade your thinking over time, but those sound neural pathways you built up all your life won't turn to jelly overnight. But for your kids, it's different. Their neural pathways are still in the process of building up for the first time. Even though we are all always rewriting our brains, kids' brains have not even fully developed. So whatever they habituate to will become hardwired moving forward. Consequently, kids who are raised as AI natives might never develop their brains for thinking in the same way that yours did. And that will not only affect their lives, but a generation of lesser thinkers will affect all of our lives. But there's good news for kids who do learn to think critically. Somewhere down the line, kids who actually learn to think for themselves will stand out against the emerging generation of kids who might never learn to think for themselves. So, if you raise your own child to think critically, it might just be among the few who lead the world to a better place. And that, once again, is why actual intelligence is so important. Please like Actual Intelligence, follow Actual Intelligence, and share Actual Intelligence across all of your social media.